Peace, family. It's good to be back. Let's get to work. Today, I want to talk to my young brothers. And I want to talk about this whole idea of wanting to be a gangster. You know, family, at some point, we began to mistaken being a gangster with actual manhood. And so you got youngsters out here in the streets who believe that the pinnacle of manhood is to become a gangster. You know, if somebody tests you're a gangster, then you have to respond in a certain way. And we've got beefs going back and forth on social media that's actually equating to bloodshed in the streets, all because we have come up with this false idea, this false narrative, and it's literally a trip over a cliff over the edge saying that I want to be a gangster. Now, people have been saying for decades that if you become a gangster, you'll only end up in two places, dead or in jail. Well, if that's the case, what is it that's so attractive about the whole idea of being gangster? And let me say this to the OGs out here. A lot of the OGs will look at these youngsters who may be rapping or trapping or whatever, and the youngsters are talking about how tough they are. And the OG will say to the youngster, man, you ain't about that life. See, you got to stop saying that to these young boys. Because when you tell them, man, you ain't about that life, what they're going to do is start trying to take steps to prove to you that they are. And it's just one more step over the cliff. And it's one more step toward being what we call a crash dummy. Now, in the city of Houston, we had a Zoom call with many of the rap artists, Slim Thug, Paul Wall, my brother Toby, along with the mayor. And we were discussing ideas to try and reach the youth. And the good brother Slim Thug came up with a concept called, is it worth it? Is it worth it is a messaging concept where you try to get young people to calculate the cost of their actions before they actually take the action. I heard somebody say that the greatest skill set that a man can learn is to calculate the cost of your present activity and the future consequences associated with that present activity. You got to learn the law of cause and effect. Now, in my dealings with young teenagers and young 20-year-olds and mentoring them, it's usually not until after they do something criminal or something stupid or take somebody's life that they realize that it was not worth it. But what we got to do is get them to calculate that on the front end. Now, let me give you a scenario. We're in a pandemic. Times are hard. Let's just be real. There are people who woke up this morning not knowing where their next meal was coming from. So let's just say, youngster, you decide you want to rob a convenience store. Okay, well, we live in a cashless society now. In other words, most people are not even spending cash money anymore. So if you go rob a convenience store, there might be $400 in the register. Maybe $400 in the cash register. Okay. Well, if you rob that store with a gun, which you know you can't rob it with a number 2 pencil, that's aggravated robbery. In the state of Texas, aggravated robbery carries a sentence from 5 to 99 years. Okay. The fine alone is a minimum $10,000. Now you doing all of this for $400. If you want to fight the case, the lawyer's going to cost you about 15 grand. That doesn't include court costs. And God forbid you go to jail. Listen, if you do 3 years in jail on an aggravated robbery charge, which is not unusual here in the state of Texas, and let's just say you could have had a job at McDonald's. Dude, you can make $30,000 working at McDonald's to feed your family. So that's $90,000 that you would be giving up even if you worked at a minimum wage job and not, in lieu of going to jail. As a matter of fact, if you go to jail for 3 years, instead of you feeding your family got to feed you. It's a totally backwards hustle. Okay. So before you make that move, you got to ask yourself the question first and foremost, is it worth it? I remember seeing a young man from my neighborhood loked up with some of his homies. They went and robbed a bank. They got away with some money, probably a good $15,000, $16,000. It ain't no real money. Hopped in the car. Somebody called the police. The police got a line on them, start chasing them. And I remember, and I'm looking at this on the news. You know how the news helicopters they have that sky eye and they're looking down. So I'm looking at this young brother running through an open field, being chased by the police with a bag of money. Money just flying everywhere, okay? Something happened. The police shot him. He ends up dying. Now, before he robbed that bank, he was thinking about the lick that he was about to hit and what he was going to do with that money. But look at how it ended up. At the end of the day, his objective was to rob the bank, but who did he really rob? First of all, the bank's money is insured. So there's no such thing as robbing a bank. They're going to get that money back. But you done lost your life over nothing, bro. You robbed your mother of a son. You robbed your child of a father. You robbed your community of a potential great one. And most importantly, damn it, you robbed yourself of the most precious thing that you have, and that is your life. So most of the time, you robbers ain't out here robbing nobody but yourselves. I know what you're thinking. You saying, Brother Deric Muhammad, I got to eat, bro. I got to feed my family. Tell you a story before I wrap this up. I remember one time my sister, she lived in an apartment complex across the street from a park in the hood. And at this time, her young son was probably 5th or 6th grade, having a lot of problems with him. So she decided to take her son across the street from the apartment complex to discipline him. Well, one of the young hustlers on the corner came over and told my sister, "You making too much noise over here. You doing too much. You attracting attention. We trying to get this money." And when my sister said something back to him, he decided to call my sister a female dog. My sister, being angry as she had a right to be, called me, which made me angry. So I loaded up, went over there, and I approached him. "Which one of y'all called my sister the B word?" Man, they started treating me like I was the police. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, all right. And when I walked up on them, they were in a dice game. I remember I went and put my foot on the dice, and I'm like, "Which one of y'all called my sister the B word?" They wouldn't tell me. So I said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you straight up, y'all probably want to move because in 24 hours, this corner going to be shut down. Guarantee you. It's going to be shut down." They knew me well enough to know that I was serious. And so one of them approached me and said, "Brother Deric, I got to feed my family. I ain't finna let you or nobody else stop me from feeding my family." And I looked at the gold chain on his neck. And I said to myself, your baby can't eat that gold chain. Your baby can't eat those sneakers, those brand new sneakers that you got on your feet, the Air Force Ones, I think it was. Your baby can't eat those Air Force Ones. The rims on your car, your baby can't eat that. So what's really going on here? Don't get me wrong. There's some people out here really hustling to try to feed their families. But most of y'all are out here hustling, trying to impress somebody that don't give a damn about you and looking like crash dummies in the process. So before you pull that trigger, ask yourself the question, is it worth it? Before you rob somebody, because you just robbing yourself, ask yourself the question, is this really worth it? Before you go out and commit a homicide, before you kill somebody, before you murk somebody, and pull out the stick or whatever y'all call it these days, ask yourself the question, when I point this gun at somebody and I take their life, don't you realize that when you take somebody's life, a part of you dies as well? And when you take somebody's life and a part of you dies, you're just walking around dead, bro. So I can't do it for you. Your mother, your father, community leaders, your preacher, your pastor, can't do it for you. You got to think for yourself. And all we're asking is before you make a stupid decision, calculate the cost of what it really, really, really is going to be once the decision is made and the deed is done. Because right now, we're only looking like crash dummies and food for the criminal justice system. I hope and pray that this message was received in the spirit that it was meant to be given. Peace.